You remember the headlines. Locker room risk. Entitled. Too many demands. 3 months later, the same kid is dropping 25 in his first NBA action, matching up with Kevin Durant and earning genuine praise, while the off-court figure everyone said was protecting him quietly exits the picture. That's not just a comeback. That's a narrative reversal, and it didn't happen by accident. It happened because the truth finally separated from the noise. Ace Bailey's arc is the kind of story the league hasn't seen in a while. An 18-year-old projected top 3 pick who fell to number 5 amid a chaotic pre-draft process, and then walked into Utah, said he felt blessed, and got to work. The Jazz didn't squint. They did their homework, made the pick, and never wavered about the person or the player they believed they were bringing in. Let's rewind the tape, fast. The draft spiral. Inside draft rooms, the whispers were loud. Some teams were told Bailey wouldn't work out. Others heard he wouldn't report if selected. That kind of talk spooks owners, especially at the very top of the lottery. Utah's read was different. They leaned into background calls and first-hand intel and concluded the talent and makeup outweighed the circus. They took him 5th, called it an easy decision, and got a teenager who immediately reported, talked about gratitude, and carried himself like a pro. That's the first crack in the old narrative. Behind the curtain. If you want to understand the rest, follow the calendar and who was pulling which strings. In July, before Summer League even got rolling, the NBA stepped in and blocked Utah from adding Omar Cooper Jr., the son of Bailey's advisor, as a guest coach on the Jazz SL staff. That's not standard. That's the league saying, this arrangement doesn't pass the smell test. Utah canceled it. At minimum, it raised questions about boundaries around a teenage prospect's orbit. Then, as training camps approached, the puzzle pieces started clicking in place. The September timeline. On September 19th, the Washington Wizards signed Sharife Cooper, the other son, to a 2-way contract. Just 5 days later, reporting surfaced that Ace Bailey fired Omar Cooper and was seeking new representation. Same week, same franchise that had been floated as a preferred landing spot back in June. If you were Ace watching all that unfold, what conclusion would you draw? The team your camp was perceived as steering you towards signs your advisor's son. Then you cut ties within days. That's not a coincidence. That's a young player removing a conflict of interest from his career. By the end of September, the label had shifted. The drama wasn't Ace being difficult. It was the adults around him making moves that made teams uneasy. Once the separation happened, everything got simpler. Basketball only. Basketball over noise. This is where the Jazz earned their shine. Head coach Will Hardy didn't promise stardom. He promised a plan. He literally went back and studied rookie year tape of Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum, not the superstar versions, the first steps versions, to design Ace's early play type diet. Translation: fewer, everyone get out of the way isolations, more actions that fit his strengths right now. Catch and shoots, second side attacks, cuts, and quick counters off screens. That's how you set a 19-year-old up to succeed without turning the franchise into a one-man experiment. And then the kid stepped on an NBA floor for the first time and did exactly that. The KD test. Opening preseason. Jazz versus Rockets. New look Houston with Kevin Durant in the building after a summer blockbuster. Bailey puts up 25 on 11 of 16, adds boards, dimes, and steals, and never looks rushed. The shot profile tells you everything. Decisive mids, clean finishes, timely threes, minimal dribble waste, maximum advantage. Durant, who doesn't hand out compliments like candy, calls Bailey dynamic, says he's with a coaching staff and development program he loves and expects a big year and a big career. That's validation from the exact archetype Ace models parts of his game after. For context, yes, KD is a Rocket now. He scored 20 in his own Houston preseason debut, and there's already chatter about his next contract. The point is, the stage was real, the matchup was real, and the respect was earned. What it really says. When young stars get labeled, it sticks, sometimes unfairly. Ace Bailey's first few months are a case study in how reputation can be shaped by handlers, leaked preferences, and behind-the-scenes asks that teams read as red flags. Once the Jazz insulated the basketball and Ace cut loose the advisor whose orbit kept drawing headlines, the players showed up exactly as advertised. Length, touch, feel, burst, and a motor that plays within the system, not against it. That's also why Utah's approach matters. The Jazz didn't feed the drama. They absorbed it, trusted their work, and put Bailey in actions that translate on day one. Early offense, slot cuts, quick pin downs into clean feet-set jumpers, and simple two-dribble counters when defenders overplay. That's how you turn talent into efficiency before the handle and shot creation toolkit fully mature. And it's exactly what Hardy signaled when he talked about calibrating the play-type diet for a teenager. The people who got it right and wrong. It's easy to call a 19-year-old difficult when the adults in the room are setting ultimatums. It's harder to look at who benefits from those ultimatums. The league stepping in to block the advisor's son from a Jazz roll wasn't politics. It was a guardrail. The Wizards signing the other son days before Ace moved on from that advisor wasn't random. It was the final nudge that clarified where everyone stood. Ace didn't clap back online. He just changed his representation and hooped. That's maturity, and it's probably the best endorsement he could give the Jazz for betting on his character in June. The ceiling from here. So what's real beyond one night in October? First, the fit. Utah looks at Bailey as a long-term pillar next to Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George, a wing scorer who doesn't need heavy on-ball usage to bend a defense. Second, the timeline. The Jazz aren't trying to declare victory on 2 preseason games. Hardy said the goal is to avoid overreacting either way, good or bad, and keep stacking reps. That attitude is how you slow cook an elite wing. Third, the league respect. When someone like Durant publicly stamps your potential, that changes how defenses game plan and how teammates feed you in rhythm. Now you're being guarded like a problem. Now the development reps happen against real attention, and that accelerates growth. If you want an early checklist to track as the year unfolds, it's simple. Shot diet. Are most attempts still coming from quick advantages, cuts, second side touches, and clean mids? Or is he drifting into tough, dribble-heavy looks? Processing speed. One-beat decisions on the catch. Shoot it, drive it, or swing it. No ball stopping. Team counters. When teams top-lock him off pin downs or sit on the mid-range, does Utah flow him into slips, DHOs, and ghost screens to keep the defense guessing? Defensive floor. The Jazz praised his rebounding effort during draft evals. If the defense is average plus as a rookie, the offensive flashes pop harder. The quiet lesson. Here's the part people won't say out loud. Not every draft day mess is about the kid. Sometimes it's about leverage theater, steering, posturing, and side deals that help everyone except the teenager whose name is on the board. Bailey wearing the blame in June made for easy talk shows. Bailey shaking it off in October makes for a better career. Utah didn't save him. They believed him and built a structure that lets the game breathe. He held up his end by cutting loose what didn't serve him and then competing. That's why this isn't just a hot start. It's a reset. Bottom line, the prospect who got dinged for noise just answered with production, a coach with a plan, and respect from the exact legend he grew up studying. If that's the opening chapter, the next few months are going to be fun, not because of a narrative, but because the work is aligned with the talent.